There are a lot of changes going on in 2014. Like, one of the biggest issues going on right now is the ability for same-sex couples to get married. A lot of today's society is very open about their lives, and when it comes to the world of marriage, I'm a newlywed myself and come from a blended family rather than traditional families. Now, I'm here to tell you how the traditional family or traditional marriage has changed since the 60s. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what it is, how it's defined in the family structure, and then I'm going to tell you how it has changed, and then after that I'm going to show you how it has impacted society. First off, what it is. It is a fancy word for family structure. Marriage is defined by paper, legal unions that are recognized by governments. But a fancy way of defining a traditional marriage is a social unit consisting of the parents and their children. Now, like I said, it's a fancy term for structure. Now, the family structure of a traditional marriage is a mother who stays at home and takes care of the kids in the house, a working father, and normally 2 to 3 children. But in today's society, you don't really see traditional families anymore. In today's society, you see more along the lines of all these others. The family structures that you see a lot today are the interracial family structures, single parent structures. You see same-sex couples that are in a family situation. They may not be able to be married yet, but they are a traditional family. Blended families and a nuclear family. The differences between these families is a nuclear family is almost the same as a traditional family, but normally in a nuclear family you have the mother who's also working alongside the father. Then with blended families, you have a yours, mine, and ours situation where a parent or both parents will have children from a prior relationship or marriage and come together and marry, and then they'll have both of their children, and then sometimes they have children of their own. The same-sex couple marriage is men and men and women and women. That is the biggest issue going on right now for civil rights, to be equal in the ability to be married to one another. And then there is the single-parent families. And a lot of times back in the 60s, you didn't see single parents. You had both parents in the picture, but now, due to circumstances, under whatever reason, people find themselves a single mother or a single father, and it's becoming more and more relatable, or you see it more often. It's more consistent. And then the interracial marriages. For a long time, interracial marriages were outlawed, and even some states and places didn't allow African Americans, but 2 African Americans to get married, much less a Japanese person and a Mexican person to be able to be married. But now it isn't against the law anymore. Those were all outlawed and ruled to be unconventional. So now it's interracial couples can marry and have children and be fully functional parts of society, no matter what. And then the rate of divorce is probably the biggest change in marriage that anybody has seen. Now, in about 1969, Ronald Reagan passed the no-fault divorce law, which allows you to divorce your husband or wife for any reason. You didn't woke up one day and just didn't like the way they looked, didn't like the way they sounded. You decided you didn't want them to be in your life anymore, so they weren't, and you went and you get a divorce. The no-fault divorce made that possible. Before then, you had to have hard evidence of infidelity. Was probably the only time, but it could not be proven hardly on the man's side. It was always the man divorcing the woman. Women were supposed to stay with their man, stand by their man. And shockingly enough, in the 60s, the divorce rate was around 25%. And then in 2013, they redid the statistics, and the divorce rate was a little over 50%, which is astounding that it jumped up a fourth. It jumped up from a fourth to a half of the population. And that's a very scary percentage. Now, the impact it's had on society. Society is impacted by many things that go on in the world, bills being passed and whatnot. But the changes in marriage, or as I said, marriage is a fancy term for family structure. The impact it's had on the society is both positive and negative. The positive changes is the fact that people can get a divorce easier in, abuse cases, whether it be mental or physical or any other type of way. It's a lot easier for men and women to get away from those situations, and any other bad situations going on, if like their husband or a significant other is selling drugs and dragging them down with them and they have children, or if it's just a very bad situation for you and your husband, or if you're always arguing and your kids are seeing that and you don't want them to see it and you don't want them to have that type of relationship when they're older, then you can get a divorce. It's a lot easier to get the divorce now. And nowadays people can marry that couldn't, like African Americans can marry, black and whites can marry, Asians and Mexicans can marry, Mexicans and Israelis can marry, all types of cultures can marry in and blend together. Now, that used to be illegal in a lot of places in the United States of America. It was extremely looked down upon. And then there's negative sides. There's always a negative. The negative sides of how it has impacted society is the divorce rate. It's one of those double-edged swords. Part of divorces, and probably the most broadcast and publicized reasons, are just because. They just got a divorce because there was the 30-day marriage and the 2-day marriages and the celebrities, and that's frivolous. That's a very negative change, because divorce is supposed to be a very sacred part, a very big part of your life. And then all the controversy over it. There's a bunch of controversy over it, and it causes people to rip each other apart. And that's not good. Now, to end it all, I hope this has informed you on a lot of it. We now know, what it is exactly, that it's more of a family structure than it is the marriage, how it's changed and how it's impacted us all. Marriage is seen as the biggest life-changing event that anybody can do, really, because it's a choice. And then, even though it's such a big deal and it's such an important fact of life, it's such a very important stage of life, it's no subject to not be changed. It changes all the time. It changes with time, just as everything will.